Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Kirsten here, and welcome back. This is a new episode of A Better Way with Kirsten Kimura podcast. Thank you so much for being here. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't done it yet, and also leave this video a thumbs up because I think you're gonna like it. Also, leave a comment in the comment sections if this video spoke to you. If you have something to add, something to discuss, please let me know. If you are listening to it on Apple Podcast, it would be so very helpful if you could leave me a 5-star rating and a review there, because this will help the podcast to grow. And also, if you're listening to it on Spotify, also subscribe, share with your friends, do what you can to help to spread the word about this podcast, because it is a lot easier to do when you can help me. So today we're going to talk about, should you track your macros when you're traveling? Should you not? What are my thoughts on that? But I also wanted to forgot to mention my Fit and Fuel Facebook group. And the reason why I remembered right now as I was talking to you is this. I said, should you track, right? Should you track when traveling? So every Thursday in the month of March, I'm giving in my Facebook group a tip for more accurate tracking. So if you are tracking your macros every Thursday, there's going to be one tip that will help you to do it better so that you can also get better results, because we want it or not, macro tracking takes a level of accuracy. And if you are wrong all the time, if you miscalculate things, if you mislog your things, you're not going to be accurate and you're not going to get the results that you want to get. So every Thursday, there's going to be a new tip there. But not only that, every Monday, I'm also sharing a meal tip. So I'm calling this a Meal Monday. Every Wednesday, I'm doing a live video there in the group where I'm doing, let's say, like a stretching routine, mobility routine. Last week I did a tutorial on how to feel your glutes more when you're doing your glute dominant exercises, right? How you're going to fix your push-up form, things like that. And on Fridays, we're going to have fun Fridays, which means that I'm asking you some kind of questions, something light, fun, easy, hoping that you chime in, and also sometimes giving away little gift cards there. So join the group if you're not a member yet. I think you're going to really, really love it. So should you then track macros when you're traveling? So let's talk about that, because I'm noticing that right now it is March, and for some reason, a lot of people are already traveling, taking their vacations. So this is very cool. And a lot of times I get this question, should I track? Can I take some time off? If I want to track, how do I track? And so on. Okay, so the first thing to ask yourself is, how often do I travel? So if you travel a lot, I mean a lot, let's say that you travel every month, you travel for at least a week, right? So let's say that's one person. And the other person is like who is traveling maybe 2, 3 weeks out of the year, right? So my answer to these people will be different, right? Because the person who's like traveling all the time and still wants to track macros, then she probably needs to track them while she's traveling too, because she's just traveling so much, right? So if you take that time off all the time, also your tracking is going to be inaccurate. And then you'll be like, oh, I'm not getting results. Well, because you are inaccurate. You're not logging everything. You don't maybe have access to everything that you need, and things will be harder. And so now for the other person who is traveling only, let's say 3, 4 weeks out of the year, for that person, I would say more like, yeah, you can take that time off. Probably nothing bad is going to happen because it's just so rare, right? But also think about if you are traveling a lot, if you're the person who likes like a lot of variety, a lot of changes, travels a lot, goes out a lot, because this is what happens often when you travel, you eat out a lot. So if this is you, then just think if this thing is for you, because it may not be for you. You may really want to do this thing, but if things just you're eating out all the time, you're on the road, you don't have all the tools that you need, then it may just not be the right thing for you. And I did an episode, number 252. You can go back to this episode, and it is also linked to below in the show notes and in the comments, um, or in the description. I did a podcast episode about what kind of personality does well with macro tracking and who's not going to do well. And like I said, if you're a person who changes things all the time, traveling all the time, then this may not be. And this is not to judge anybody. This is not to say somebody's better or somebody's worse. This is just a reality. For some people, it just works better and not so well for other people. So you just have to kind of know yourself. Also, when you get started with macros, be prepared, in your mindset, because I don't want you to find yourself in a situation where you say you sign up, you're all pumped, you're like, oh, let's do this. And then you're like, oh, I don't want to track, and I want to travel all the time, and I want to eat out all the time, and I want to eat out 7 days a week. So why is nothing happening? because your tracking is not accurate, right? So you have to just keep that in mind. This is the nature of this thing. So if it works for you, you can make it work, fine. But if you are traveling a lot and you can't track, at least half of your meals, then it's not going to work out for you too well. Okay, so now let's talk about this, like a person who is living like a more like a regular lifestyle, who doesn't travel all the time, right? So like I said, maybe travels, I don't know, 3 4 weeks out of the year. So should she then track when she is traveling? And I would say this is really a decision that you can make. Talk to your coach if you work with a coach and decide it together whether it is for you or whether it's not for you. So I will say that if you are in a calorie deficit and your goal is actively to lose weight, right? I really need to lose weight. I want this really bad. Then it is of course a little bit better for you if you continue tracking, because then you stay on that track, right? If you're on maintenance, you don't have a specific body weight loss goals right now, then I would say let go, let that 1 week go. It's gonna be right, and nothing, nothing bad will happen. Now, I will say one thing. I want to talk about diet breaks too. And if you don't know what a diet break is, then let me tell you briefly. This is just a strategic break from a calorie deficit that everybody who's in a fat loss phase needs. If you don't take these breaks, if you don't occasionally bring your calories up to maintenance level, then you're more likely to hit plateaus and you're not going to have as successful fat loss as you wanted. So I've done a guide on this topic, how to plan out your fat loss for 1 year, and you can check it out. It is also linked to in the show notes. It costs $9, and it will give you all the details about how to take these diet breaks. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is this. If I have a client who is in a calorie deficit and they are planning a vacation, then I'm trying to put that diet break to that time, right? During that time of their vacation, because traveling, as we all know, it is harder to track. You probably don't have your food scale. You don't have full control over your eating. So it is better that you can be in a diet break during that time. So if it works out time wise, then I always do that, just to give the person more flexibility and just like a little bit of a break too, because everybody, I think most people need that break. Okay, so now I think that most people, unless they are in a very like strict calorie deficit and have a very, very like strategic goal, I think that most people actually should be able to be 1 week with just tracking loosely, right, when they're traveling. And this is something that can be scary for some people. They're like, oh my God, I can't leave my full scale home. But I want you to understand that eventually you have to get there, right? Eventually you have to get to the point where you don't depend on the food scale. You don't depend on your coach telling you everything. You don't depend on the body weight scale. I don't want you to depend on any of these things. I want you to get to the place where you can make decisions for yourself that are healthy, that serve you well, and that don't make you panic, right? You have to stay calm. Stay calm. It's going to be all right. So let's say that now that you're traveling, this is a really good way to practice that. Let's say for 1 week, or let's say, 4 days. Of course, you can absolutely practice this thing. So what do you then do? Let's say that you do take some time off from tracking. And I actually support that, especially if you have been tracking for a long time. You know how to do this. You very well know what 4 ounces of chicken look like and so on. I actually support that you take some time off and just be intuitive about it. Keep in mind the things that you have learned throughout this journey, and you're going to be okay. Because I think most people need some break from tracking, also mentally, right? Not everybody, but a lot of people like to take a little bit of a break, and then they come back and they feel good and they feel ready to get back to it again. So let's say that this is you now. You're like, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna be gone for let's say 4 to 7 days. Can I take a break from tracking altogether? And like I said, unless you're like a really like tough, intense deficit for some reason, then take that time off. And keep in mind the following things. So what is the first thing, like one meal that you typically have more control over? Let's say that you even like, most of the time you eat out or you go hiking, you're out and about, then breakfast is always the one that you have more control over, isn't it? And make good choices there, right? So start your day with high protein breakfast, which you probably are doing already at home too. So continue the same thing. If you're staying at an Airbnb, no problem at all. You can always buy, your yogurts and your eggs and turkey, whatever you like to eat that is high protein in the morning, and just keep doing the same thing when you're on vacation. Buy the stuff that you would normally have and have good control over your first meal of the day, and that is actually really, really helpful, even if the rest of the day is not going to be ideal, which it will not be, because you can't control everything, and you don't have to. Even if the rest of the day is not so perfect, then you have already done a lot with the first meal of the day. So this is something that everybody can do. If you are not staying in an Airbnb, let's say that you're staying in a hotel and there's like a hotel breakfast, see what they offer there. Sometimes there are really good options. If there's really nothing that you would like or that is, helpful, keeping in mind your nutrition goals, then just go to the store and buy a couple of things for the next several mornings that you can have them. But yes, keep in mind that the breakfast is really like big winner. If you can get that right, your day is starting really great. Then it's always good to have some protein snacks on hand, because we know that it's so much harder to find like protein, like just randomly, right? Like the little convenience store, it's harder. So when you're traveling, have some things on hand already. I always say, jerky is good, some protein bars might be great, some Greek yogurt if you can bring it with you. Those meat sticks are pretty good. Sometimes gas stations have, hard-boiled eggs. You can have those, you can buy those. So little things like that. And protein powder, you can take that with you too when you're traveling. Just mix it with water or some milk, and you can get your protein. So keep these things in mind and maybe focus on them a little bit more than when you're at home. You may not need them as much at home, because protein supplements are supplements. They shouldn't be your main meal, but when you're traveling, they may be a little bit more helpful than usual. Now, when you're eating out, make good choices. Always think about, and you probably are really tired of hearing this, but protein first and then fiber, right? So these two things, fiber, of course, comes from vegetables. Mostly, you can, fruits too, a little bit of rice and so on, oats. But when you go out to eat and you look at the menu, then look at it with this eye. Okay, which foods have more protein and more fiber? I'm gonna pick that. And then at the same time, also keep in mind that a lot of foods are cooked in lots of oil. They have, added like all kinds of dressings and things like that. A lot of foods are fried or breaded, deep fried. So these are things that you want to minimize, because they are very, very high in calories. So just try to keep your meals really simple and see, does it have like visible protein, right? So that's like your, chicken breast or beef or something like that. And what is the fiber there? Right. So when you hit these two, of course, you're going to have the other things too. It's not that you only eat like your chicken and broccoli and you never touch any of the rice. Of course, you will, but just focus on that chicken and vegetables first. A lot of times also when you eat out, actually, they are not very generous with protein. So there's even more reason to eat that first, so that you eat, most of it or all of it before you get your carbs and other parts of the meal. So this is a very simple thing to keep in mind. Now, when we're traveling, a lot of us want to eat more desserts. A lot of us like more alcohol. So these are things where you have to have you can't just enjoy yourself. I'm nothing against that, but also keep in mind like how much do I have them, and do I have to have them after or with every meal, right? So let's say you have 1 week vacation, you don't have to drink alcohol every single evening, do you? Or if same thing, you don't have to have like ice cream every single evening. Or some days, let's say that you're like, I want to have both. Okay, you had a day like this, not a big deal. Let's move on, but let's not make it a daily thing, right? Sometimes sharing a dessert is all you need. This is pretty much what we always do if we order a dessert at a restaurant, we always split it. We hardly ever have like each like our own dessert. So be a little bit more selective there. Think what you really need, what do you really want, and would also smaller portions satisfy you? Would that be okay? And of course, with alcohol, if you listen to one of the more recent episodes that I did with Stacey Miller, she talked all about alcohol-free living. So this is definitely what I encourage too, but I understand that it's not for everybody. So if you want your alcohol, also, keep in mind that it will not be very good for your body, right? And when you come back, and if you had that wine or whatever alcoholic drink literally every day, every evening of the vacation, your body will show it, right? And not only in body weight, you will feel worse. You will feel like more sluggish, digestion might be off, sleep might be off, just like puffiness. It's not going to feel great. And the same thing is, of course, when you eat too much sugar. So just, enjoy yourself, but be mindful at the same time. I'm never a fan of like hardcore restriction and absolute 100% no with everything. You just have to have common sense. And sometimes you have to say no too. If you're like, okay, I already had ice cream like 3 days in a row, maybe I should take a break. And you can't do it, right? You're an adult. You're actually capable, absolutely capable of that. And then one more thing I want to say is that know that your weight will very likely be a little bit up once you return. It's just how it is. There's so many factors that play into it. Let's say, like, out of 3 meals of the day, 2 of them were eaten out. You cannot control the sodium, you cannot control everything that it was cooked in. Maybe there were some foods that you cannot tolerate too well and you don't eat them at home, but they added them there. Um, there might be extra inflammation. The water quality may have been completely different where you were. Your hydration, like if you had a longer plane, right, then your hydration will not be great. You'll be very dehydrated. Actually, it does also impact your weight. A lot of people, and this is like every time when I travel, digestion is not very smooth at all. So you can definitely feel that too. It's just like sometimes people get more constipated, more gassy, things are not moving as smoothly, they don't go to the bathroom, and the weight is up. So there's a really, really good chance that when you come back, even if you ate well, even if you ate quote unquote clean, that your weight will be up. But this is nothing to be super alarmed about. Just try to think, what did I do? Did I like completely overindulged? Yes, then this is probably one of the reasons why weight is up. But if you were reasonable, you didn't like overdo it, you controlled things well, and you were like normal about food, then this is probably just a little bit of just a natural weight gain that comes from traveling. Like I mentioned, dehydration, sodium, different foods, potentially inflammatory foods. Then they just will increase your weight. This is how it is. And it typically goes back down, let's say, about 3-4 days after you come back. Things should normalize. Okay, so what do I personally do when I travel? Honestly, when I travel, I don't track unless I'm gone for unless I have a specific goal, unless I am in a fat loss phase and I'm gone for, let's say, a month. Then I just can't afford, like, okay, I'm not going to track for a month and I want to lose weight. So that's really difficult to do. If I have a goal, if I'm gone for a long time, then I will track. Typically, if it's just like 1 week, then I take that off because I've done this for a long time. I know how to eat. I know that I'm not going to like severely overindulge. I would probably eat more than I do at home, but I'm not going to like do a lot of damage, right? And then I just don't track. Even though I typically on a vacation, I don't lift weights. So I do a lot more like other active things. I go hiking a lot. I walk a lot, depending on where we're going. It is pretty active otherwise, but I typically don't lift weight if it's just like 1 week vacation. Last summer I was gone for a month, and this is when I did go to the gym. Of course, it's a month is a long time, so this is when I did it. But yeah, if it's like a week or so, we've even been to Hawaii a few times for like 2 weeks, and I have taken that time off because I'm on the move all the time when I'm in Hawaii, like walking, hiking, stand-up paddleboarding all the time. So I haven't found that I need to add that stress of lifting on myself necessarily. But yes, during these times, uh, tracking, in my opinion, is not necessary. And like I said before too, I think it is very helpful if you can learn to trust yourself, and you can get evidence that okay, nothing bad happens when I take a little bit of time. And of course, I also want to say that this advice, everything that I shared today, is for like an everyday normal person who wants to be fit and healthy. This is not for, let's say, a bodybuilder who's getting ready to, their peak performance. And this is when we cannot afford that type of stuff. But a normal everyday person who just wants to be healthy and fit, this is the advice that I would have. All right, I hope this was helpful. Again, if you have any comments about this topic, please leave them in the comments section below. If you have any other feedback, if you have any thoughts, anything you would like me to talk about on this podcast, please let me know. You can find me on Instagram, and you can also find me in the Fit and Fuel Facebook group. All right, see you next time, and take care.